Tonight, Warner goes out in style.
Well, it's game over for the game changer.
A half-century and a clean sweep. His emotional send-off for the SCG as cricket farewells one of its most polarising players. Another tragedy on our beaches. A father drowns his young son, rescued from the water. A house in Sydney's southwest catches fire and starts to collapse. 2 residents escape with seconds to spare. Terror at 16,000 feet. A plane window explodes, forcing pilots to turn back. The credit card fees costing Australians billions, and many may not even know they are being ripped off. And from the farm to the front porch, your friendly neighbourhood milkman is back.
Live from Sydney, 7 News with Robert Ovadia.
Good evening. He kissed Australia's coat of arms, raised his hands, and with that, David Warner retired from Test cricket. The Australian opener walked from the SCG to seal a career as brilliant as it has been divisive. He was offered a standing ovation from players, from fans, and from those who have always meant more to him than anything, family.
We've seen him emotional before, but surely this moment would surpass all others. David Warner's last time on the pitch as an Australian Test cricketer.
Among him have divided opinion, but he dominated opening the batting in Australia for Australia.
His final knock, 57, out after review.
Well, it's game over for the game changer. And David Warner farewells Test cricket.
David Warner's final innings in Test cricket came to an end. There was plenty of drama. It was a wonderful knock.
Yeah, look, it's pretty much a dream come true. And just to come here in front of your home crowd with the support that they've shown me and the Australian cricket team over my last decade or my career, I can't thank them enough.
Oh, absolutely proud, but I'm always proud of my husband, and the girls are always proud of their dad. But an incredible turnout at the SCG today.
You proud?
Yeah.
Walking off the nerves as he headed out for the final innings. An embrace with Usman Khawaja, a friend since childhood.
There's even more emotion being shown there. Take it all in now.
The words on many lips etched into the turf, the milestone etched into history. His appearance well received in the stands. Chipping away at 130.
This is Warner at his absolute best.
It could have been over early.
No control over that at all. He thought that's going straight down that man's throat.
But Warner's freewheeling ways got him to a half-century, raising the bat one last time.
And this is a glorious finale.
Well, like him or loathe him for his past transgressions, the people in this crowd are today grateful Warner is still wearing an Australian kit and a baggy green.
I love him. He's a good batter. He's always been good for Australia.
The average Australian loves him at the end because they're a real fighter.
So how does David Warner want to be remembered?
Exciting, entertaining, and I hope I'll put a smile on everyone's face.
Tom Hartley, 7 News.
Mel McLaughlin, of course, was there today. She's here with me now. Mel, a lot of controversy, obviously, around David Warner's career.
Yeah, well, Rob, it was a beautiful day at the SCG. It was a great test, and Warner Week, as Pat Cummins coined as well. There was a lot of love in the air. You could feel it from the fans. We know what happened with Sandpaper Gate in 2018. He certainly served his time. He knows he divides opinion as well for whatever reason, and he offered earlier in the week to have a beer with anyone who might have an opinion. But he went out his way. We know on day one with that final over, he could have got a night watchman out there, but he said, no, I'm not going to back down. I want to, go out there and take people on. That was a little bit scary. And then he gets his half-century for his troubles on the final day. So really a fairy tale, getting to, retire in front of his family and friends on his home ground alongside Marnus Labuschagne when he brought up that half-century. And he certainly goes down as one of the all-time greats in all 3 forms, it has to be said, particularly at home when it comes to the red ball, and certainly a trailblazer as well. So, we still have the shorter form of the game to come where we will see him, playing plenty more cricket. But it is certainly the end of an era. So, the curtain down on an interesting career, a brilliant career as well.
Heart on his sleeve, doesn't apologise for who he is.
Well, no, but he's pretty self-aware as well.
Thanks, Mels. Catch you later in sport.
Okay, thanks.
Cheers. A father has drowned on the state's Central Coast in front of his young son. It happened at Ettalong Beach. Lucy McLeod is there. Lucy, what more do we know?
Well, Rob, the man in his 30s and his young 10-year-old son were just enjoying their day out on this unpatrolled beach when around 2:30 the father went out for a swim and got caught in a rip. The young 10-year-old boy swam out to try and save him, screaming for help from other beachgoers, but it was a group of men on jet skis who saw them struggling and pulled them aboard. Take a listen.
He was maybe a couple metres out. He was stuck in a rip. His son jumped in trying to help him, but then his son started drowning as well. When we pulled his son out of the water, I actually have no words, it's a bit of a shock.
Young boy watched on as they tried to revive his father for nearly an hour. Witnesses have told me they held this boy who said to them, "I don't want this to be the last time with my father," and not long after he was pronounced dead. A report will now be prepared for the coroner as this young boy is forced to come to terms with the fact he's now lost his father. Rob.
That is a terrible story. Lucy McLeod on the Central Coast. Thank you. In breaking news, a toddler has been run down and killed by a ute at a holiday park outside Dubbo. Paramedics treated the boy on the site at Mumbill. His injuries were so severe, though, he had to be flown to the Children's Hospital at Westmead. He passed away late this afternoon. Police are investigating. A Sydney man is homeless after fire incinerated his house and everything in it overnight, right in front of him. At least he escaped, though. The fire was so intense it jeopardised neighbours too.
It started as a flicker, but within minutes, the roof caves. As flames reach high into the sky, 2 people and their pet dog make it out in time.
Holy
The fire started on the second story of this Casula townhouse at around 11 o'clock last night. The owner tried to put it out himself.
Are we safe?
All of a sudden I seen a big fireball coming from down the street.
I was scared and I just called 000. It was getting bigger and bigger.
Shh, it's all right, it's all right. Oh my God. Hoods, go get the kids out of the car.
And there were fears it would spread to other houses.
I looked out the study window and the flames were higher than our house, and I just woke everyone up. I was like, we need to go.
There was embers actually flying towards our house, which we were concerned about. But yeah, it was a bit scary.
30 firefighters helped battle the blaze.
Investigators haven't confirmed how the blaze started, but one line of inquiry is whether a candle may have been responsible. The homeowner was taken to hospital for smoke inhalation.
He was screaming for help and there was no one could do anything.
I just thought the whole house was going to collapse, so yeah.
It didn't, but nearly everything inside has been destroyed. Amy Clements, 7 News.
Pilots on an Alaska Airlines flight have been forced to make an emergency landing after one of the windows blew out shortly after takeoff. They'd been travelling from Oregon to California but turned back immediately with a large chunk of the fuselage missing. The sudden drop in pressure ripped off a child's shirt and sucked passengers' phones out of their hands. While it was terrifying, it is understood nobody was seriously hurt. A young woman has walked straight from a wrecked Porsche into the custody of police who had been chasing her in a wild pursuit through our western suburbs. Witnesses are scathing. They say the driver could have killed someone.
Driving through Parramatta, police are hot on the heels of this SUV. Officers running a red to catch up with the vehicle they say had earlier done the same at speed. Minutes later, it rounds the corner again before racing off and slamming into this pole.
The police siren was coming and you could hear there was a chase on. After that, you could hear the loud bang.
I heard a loud bang, really loud bang, and then a bolt of lightning came through my bedroom.
That lightning was electrical sparks as the power was cut.
There was a young lady who was sitting on the ground looking a little bit dazed and confused.
Behind the wheel, detectives believe was a 23-year-old woman. She managed to walk from the wreck with only minor injuries. Friends and family arriving moments later to gather her belongings as she was taken away by ambulance.
It's disgusting. It's 40 k's through here. So easily, like, they could have killed someone through here. It's terrible.
While thankfully no one was seriously injured, this crash caused a huge headache for residents in this area. Many were left without power for hours into the morning. Crews forced to replace the pole altogether. Jodie Lee, 7 News.
Disgraced Paralympian Oscar Pistorius has spent his first night out of jail more than a decade after murdering his girlfriend, Reva Steenkamp. He served only 9 years of a 13-year sentence, and that is sparking outrage in South Africa. His victim's family says there can never be justice.
7.5 years after he was jailed, Oscar Pistorius is out, but hardly free. He was secretly released from this Pretoria jail in the early hours, taken to his uncle's expansive gated estate, where he must live for the next 5 years on parole.
He did made a mistake, he served, and then, I think it's high time now he comes back to the community.
I hope to see him one day back on the road, running again.
The Olympic and Paralympic star, dubbed the Blade Runner, was convicted of murdering his girlfriend Reva Steenkamp, firing 4 shots through a bathroom door in 2013. He maintained throughout his televised trial he mistakenly thought she was an intruder. Reva Steenkamp's parents have never believed him. We who remain behind are the ones serving a life sentence.
No amount of incarceration, no sentence, nothing will ever bring Reva back, so there can never be justice.
Having avoided the world's media today, the double amputee is now described as overweight and greying. After working as a prison cleaner, he's reportedly considering becoming a preacher. In London, Hugh Whitfeld, 7 News.
Australians are being overcharged $1 billion a year from exorbitant fees on everyday card payments. The Reserve Bank's new governor is threatening to clamp down on banks and payment services if the rip-off continues.
Whether it's with a bank card or phone, tap and pay has become a daily ritual for most of us.
I just pay whatever it says on the screen.
But sky-high surcharge fees are costing us extra.
There's about $1 billion worth of savings that could be had.
Payment facilitators like the banks are gouging retailers when processing debit card payments, who pass that fee on to customers.
All of this stuff adds up.
I reckon they're profiting just a little bit more than they should.
For example, the average cost of processing a $100 debit purchase through EFTPOS is 28 cents, around 50 cents for Visa and MasterCard, but reader provider Square charges retailers up to $1.90.
This is a David and Goliath battle between small businesses, big banks and big credit card companies.
New Reserve Bank Governor Michelle Bullock is taking on the fight.
Greater use of these electronic methods is also adding to payment costs for businesses.
Calling on payment service providers to implement least cost routing.
The banks are going to have to send these payments down the cheapest pipe.
It's currently used by 54% of merchants.
If that figure doesn't rise to 80% by the middle of the year, Michelle Bullock is threatening to enforce least cost routing through new regulations.
In a cost of living crisis, it's no surprise she has the government's support.
I think it's one of those issues that really irks Australians.
Josh Martin, 7 News.
The US Supreme Court has expedited a hearing into whether Donald Trump can run for president. The justices agreed to hear Mr. Trump's appeal against an electoral ban in Colorado. That state disqualified the Republican frontrunner for his role in the attack on the US Capitol.
In the battleground state of Pennsylvania, Joe Biden opens his 2024 campaign.
Today, we're here to answer the most important of questions. Is democracy still America's sacred cause?
On the eve of the 3rd anniversary of the Capitol riot, the US president warning of the threat to democracy Donald Trump poses, centering his campaign, including a new TV ad on the January 6th assault.
Trump did nothing. It was among the worst derelictions of duty by a president in American history.
Now the US Supreme Court will decide if the former president is eligible to be in the race, taking up Donald Trump's appeal to a Colorado ruling that barred the Republican frontrunner from the state's primary ballot, finding he'd engaged in insurrection. The Supreme Court decision to have sweeping implications, with challenges filed in 34 other states.
I just hope that they're going to be fair because, the other side plays the ref.
The justices are expediting the case, set down for February 8 as states get closer to primaries. Trump today in Iowa, where he leads other Republican candidates days out from the critical caucuses.
That's why Crooked Joe is staging his pathetic fear-mongering campaign event in Pennsylvania today.
Another historic showdown for the man who continues to court controversy. In the United States, Jacqueline Robson, 7 News.
A microlight aircraft has crashed in WA's wheat belt this afternoon. It came down on farmland at Beverley, about 130 kilometres east of Perth. The pilot is a man in his 60s. He was seriously injured and rushed to hospital. He was the only person on board. Owners of Sydney's crumbling Mascot Towers have been thrown a lifeline tonight. It is an offer to sell and wipe their debt, likely the only offer they will get, and a chance to end 5 years of torment.
It's the problematic property that's costing its residents millions, but housing none of them.
I walk away losing 1.7 million.
Tracy Sheehan was one of hundreds forced to evacuate Mascot Towers over fears it could collapse. That was 5 years ago.
Homeless, basically, with a 2.5-year-old at the time.
The 55-year-old single mother is still paying off a $700,000 mortgage for a home she can't even live in. Now, owners like Tracy have been thrown a lifeline.
What they're going to be able to do is to walk away with no debt.
The proposal, sell their property to a third-party syndicate, which will pay to fix the 11-year-old building and resell the units. Each owner entitled to a percentage of the sale price. The bank will discount their outstanding loans. The government will also chip in.
What we're trying to do here is to make sure people walk away without the shadow of strata and mortgage debt on them.
The catch? Well, the offer only applies to owner-occupiers, and 75% of them must agree to sell. Otherwise, these 130 units will remain in limbo for years to come.
The offer on the table doesn't end the nightmare, so we need to see if the government can step up.
The government is not considering in purchasing the building.
Unfortunately, it's simply not viable.
Either way, March is the government's deadline to end this nightmare. Lucy McLeod, 7 News.
The Albanese government will name and shame companies as it seeks to close the gender pay gap. Starting next month, employers with 100 or more workers will have pay discrepancies between male and female employees published online.
It's about $26,000 a year that women get paid less than men, and we don't think that's fair.
On current projections, the national gap will not be closed for another 26 years. Time to check the weather forecast now with Amber Laidler. Amber, so much sun today.
Good evening, Rob. Yeah, there was some patchy cloud across parts of Sydney that looked a bit menacing early, but the skies cleared for a mostly sunny day. Temperatures across the Sydney Basin hovered in the mid to high 20s, though it often felt a bit fresher at times in moderate easterly winds. Tonight, a storm warning is in place for parts of the Riverina and the southwest slopes, that zone there in yellow, with a low pressure system developing across the state's south. Large parts of western New South Wales are bracing for severe storms tomorrow, with rain to reach Sydney by the start of the working week. We'll have more details in your full forecast. That's coming up a bit later, Rob.
Thanks, Amber. Speak soon. A rude awakening for residents on Sydney's lower North Shore. Coming up, police on the hunt for a thief who broke into a home naked. Passengers run for the exits when a train is set on fire. Why some of the most common and treatable cancers are going unnoticed by doctors. Later, the return of the Milkman, an almost forgotten tradition, makes a comeback. And Hollywood mourns a 70s icon, the death of Starsky and Hutch actor David Soul. We have some sad and breaking news now. One of the children critically injured in last week's tragic crash near Lithgow has died in hospital. The 11-year-old girl was a passenger in a Kia. It was driven by her father, who was also killed in the pile-up that day. One child remains in hospital in a critical condition. Residents on Sydney's lower North Shore have been startled awake by a naked man. He broke into their home in North Willoughby on Thursday morning but quickly fled. Security video reveals the man showed a lot of cheek, but he was wearing shoes. Police are appealing for anyone with information to contact Crime Stoppers. US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken is in the Middle East tonight. He is on a mission to prevent Israel's conflict with Hamas from spreading beyond Gaza. Mr. Blinken is also expected to pressure Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to do more to protect Palestinian civilians and allow more aid into the war zone. Washington wants Israel to provide a detailed plan for Gaza's future when its military offensive ends. It is Mr. Blinken's fourth visit to the region since the October 7 attacks. Skin cancer specialists are concerned regular checkups are being sacrificed because doctor appointments are becoming too expensive. They want a nationwide plan to provide free examinations to slow rising rates of melanoma.
The age-old campaign, slip, slop, slap, no longer enough, say cancer experts. Too many of us are skipping vital skin checks as seeing the doctor becomes more expensive. Now, experts want free skin checks for people with high-risk skin types.
We're working hard to generate the evidence to determine the exact high-risk skin population that should have screening tests regularly.
A steady drop in the number of doctors who bulk bill means 7% of us are cutting back on health checks. But the federal government isn't ready to make skin checks free.
I think this is a matter that would be determined through advice to government around broad-based population screening programs, and that hasn't been the case to date.
Around 20,000 Australians are diagnosed with skin cancer in a year. 1,000 die from it. Treating skin cancer costs us more than $1 billion. Preventing it can be as cheap as sitting in the shade. Add sunnies, sunscreen and protective clothing. You're well on your way to staying skin cancer free.
Just prevention, and know the skin you're in, and be sun safe this summer.
Blake Johnson, 7 News.
At least 4 people have been killed after a train was torched in Bangladesh. 2 of them were children. The blaze spread rapidly from carriage to carriage and passengers struggled to get out. Police suspect arson. It is the 8th suspected attack on trains since November and comes just 2 days before the national election. Singer Michael Bolton has revealed he's been diagnosed with brain cancer. The 70-year-old superstar posted to Facebook he had surgery as soon as the tumour was discovered. He says he's now recuperating at home, surrounded by family. And he added he will be taking a break from touring to focus on his recovery. Communities isolated in the UK as rivers burst their banks, but one man has found a solution. Up next, how he kept his home bone dry in the middle of a flood. South Koreans told to take shelter as the North fires offer barrage. Honouring an NRL great, a touching tribute to Maroon star Carl Webb.
And soon in sport, David Warner exits Test cricket with his head held high and one last victory.
Meadowbank locals have paid tribute to a man who lost his life after his apartment erupted in flames on New Year's Day. 45-year-old Mike Rasuli suffered severe burns to most of his body.
Mike was a treasured member of the Meadowbank community, but also Sydney's Persian community.
Dozens of people signed a condolence book. It will be handed to his family. At least 2 people are dead and more than 1,000 homes underwater as parts of the UK are hit with their heaviest flooding in almost a quarter of a century. Entire communities have been isolated and a spell of freezing weather is also on the way.
They heard the warnings, but never imagined it would be this severe. Parts of England and Wales swamped after a week of torrential rain, and on already saturated ground, there's nowhere for the water to go.
Once the water's getting in, it's getting in, isn't it?
With their homes inundated, people packed their bags, carrying their pets and each other out of harm's way. Emergency crews going door to door.
Hello, fire service!
And paddock to paddock. In Leicestershire, they rescued a stranded horse, ferrying it back to dry land. Boats the only means of transport, as entire communities were marooned.
There's nobody here to help us at all. We've been sort of left on our own, really, to fend for ourselves.
And now there's a warning for ice, fog and frost settling across much of the country. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak under pressure to do more.
Absolutely recognise the urgency of what is happening.
Some have taken matters into their own hands. Fed up with flooding, this man built a barrier around his house to keep the water out.
We had, I think it was 9 floods before we decided to build the wall.
Others choosing to look on the bright side.
I welcome you to the annual Rose and Crown boat race.
Flooded in, this pub owner is making the most of it.
1, 2, 3, go!
Jacinta Lee, 7 News.
North Korea has fired an artillery barrage towards 2 South Korean border islands. Hundreds of shells were blasted toward the south, prompting warnings for thousands of civilians to seek shelter. Seoul has called it a provocative act, so it ordered live fire drills of its own from the south. The shelling follows warnings from Pyongyang. It is preparing its military arsenal for war. British-American actor David Soul has died. Few names evoke the 70s more than Starsky and Hutch. Soul was the cop duo's blonde half. His friendship with his co-star lasted a lifetime. He was the soul of the 70s.
Wilbur, hold it!
David Soul, born David Solberg, and we all know him as Hutch.
Charlie, I want to leave a message for Huggy Bear.
Starsky and Hutch enjoyed a 92-episode run from 1975 to 79, a 70s staple. It popularised the buddy cop genre, action and wisecracks.
It's a great idea, Starsky. Driving's a bit shaky.
Paul Michael Glaser was tough guy Starsky to Soul's Kenneth Hutch Hutchinson.
We were joined in this destiny.
That's what this whole Starsky and Hutch phenomenon was about, is friendship. That's number one. And that's what Paul and I have had for 30 years.
Through the height of success, the pair was no more than work friends, but through the decades since, they were best friends. They also made a cameo in the 2004 movie remake.
I get a good vibe from him.
He went from good cop to bad cop, taking on Dirty Harry and Magnum Force.
What are you going to do next week? Kill a dozen more?
David Soul was a 70s heartthrob, the blonde son of Norwegian descent who could sing too.
And here I am a million miles from home.
Don't Give Up on Us went to number 1.
Don't give up on us, baby.
He was married 5 times and had 5 sons and a daughter, dying after a valiant battle for life, his family says, in the loving company of family. He shared many extraordinary gifts in the world as an actor, singer, storyteller, creative artist and dear friend.
I was flirting with him and then he took you took him away.
David Soul was 80. Well, cover up and get out the bug spray. Still to come, mosquito populations are booming this summer. Now health experts say viruses are too. How treating hearing loss could help you live longer. Plus, back on the milk run, the Sydney business reviving history.
And ahead in sport, Rafael Nadal's Australian Open in doubt after another injury scare.
Welcome back. One of rugby league's fiercest competitors has been honoured today by those who knew him best. Carl Webb was given an emotional send-off in a service in his Queensland hometown of Dalby. Family, friends and legendary teammates reflected on his legacy.
He brought out the best in those around him because everyone saw how colossal his effort was and his energy.
He played 187 NRL matches and menaced the Blues in a dozen origins. Webb succumbed to motor neurone disease. He was 42. Movie World has released a video of staff rescuing more than a dozen thrill seekers stuck on one of the park's roller coasters. The DC Rivals hypercoaster was stopped when an operator spotted a scarf entangled in one of the wheels. It left riders suspended 50 metres above the ground, not exactly the thrill they'd been seeking. They were eventually escorted down an emergency stairwell. Treating hearing loss could help you live longer, according to a study out of California. Researchers have found people who wear hearing aids have a 24% lower risk of mortality than those suffering from hearing loss who used no devices whatsoever. In a separate study, also out this week, Danish researchers found wearing hearing aids could help prevent older people from developing dementia. It is that time of the year. There is a familiar buzz in the air as mosquitoes thrive in steamy weather conditions. That is creating a heightened risk for deadly viruses and prompting a new warning from health authorities.
Persistent, wet and warm weather. Perfect conditions for pesky mosquitoes to thrive in. An environment that also sees a heightened risk of an outbreak of diseases such as Ross River virus and the dreaded Japanese encephalitis.
It doesn't matter where you are, if you get bitten by a mosquito, that mosquito could be carrying one of these diseases. And some of those diseases are potentially fatal.
A positive case of Japanese encephalitis already detected this summer during routine testing in the state's far west. Health authorities warning the community to keep an eye out for symptoms.
Fever and chills perhaps to start with, but then getting a very severe headache and then going on to confusion and sometimes seizures and then maybe even unconsciousness if it's very severe.
Those in high-risk areas are eligible for a free vaccine to protect against the infection. But as we spend more time outdoors this summer, prevention is always better than cure. To protect yourself from mozzies, experts say wear loose-fitting, long-sleeved, light-coloured clothing, use insect repellent, limit outdoor activities between dusk and dawn, and clear breeding sites for mosquitoes around your home. Mosquito populations are monitored across 50 inland and coastal locations across the state, with New South Wales Health testing for virus activity. Zoe Martin, 7 News.
Well, farm fresh dairy straight to your door. It's a relic of a bygone era, but a Sydney man is milking it for all it's worth. He started up a delivery service, which is just as good for the planet as it is for the customer. Don't miss that story soon on 7 News. First, Mel is back with Sport. Mel, you'd be forgiven for not remembering that Australia won a series today. It was all about David Warner.
Yeah, it really was, Rob, but a great win as well. But after 112 tests, David Warner ended his time in the baggy green with an absolute flurry. Powerhouse's last test innings and who he's backing to fill his place at the top of the order. And Jordan Thompson takes down the raging bull, but is Rafa Nadal's Australian Open in doubt? Welcome back. He's been dynamic and divisive, but in Australia's 8-wicket win over Pakistan, the SCG stood as one for David Warner's farewell from Test cricket. The host lost just 2 wickets, chasing down 130 on day 4. Warner didn't hit the winning runs, instead earning a standing ovation for one last swashbuckling half-century.
Lifelong friend Usman Khawaja let his fellow opener go first onto centre stage.
I will cherish these moments for forever, and I didn't have anything to go back with him because I was tearing up.
Test player 426 crossing home turf for the last time. From opponents, officials and commentators, respect.
He only knows one way. He'll come out, he'll be aggressive.
Look, we're in the entertainment business and I'm just happy to come out here and showcase what I try to do all the time.
Khawaja's role, a brief cameo, LBW for a duck, starring in his 112th and final test. David Warner hit on what we'll miss.
4 more, box office. This is Warner at his absolute best. This time the charge and a beautiful strike. Oh, Warner, whack, take that.
The final 50 for the batter builders, our best in all 3 forms of cricket.
And this is a glorious finale.
On 57, an LBW appeal overturned on review. Sajid Khan, a salute, hugs from Marnus Labuschagne. Game over for the game changer.
It's the bull saying goodbye.
Having played T20 for Australia before Test cricket, Warner wants a simple legacy.
I think it's about being brave and bold and sticking to your game plan.
Again, anointing Marcus Harris as his successor.
I spoke about Marcus Harris, and the way that I love about Marcus Harris is he takes the game on.
Sandpaper Gate, leadership bans, pub punch-ups. Warner's been polarising and prolific. Daughters and wife Candice credited with saving his career.
I'm blessed to have her.
37-year-old Warner to finish where he started, playing T20 cricket.
Most importantly, I want to win another World Cup for Australia.
Pat Cummins, player of the series, a 3-0 clean sweep. Warner leading the team song. Andrew McKinlay, 7 News.
Having swept the one-day series, Australia's all-conquering women were pumped in the first T20 against India. The top order collapsed, losing 4 for 33, including ducks for Talia McGrath and Ash Gardner. Phoebe Litchfield continuing her good form with 49, but it couldn't stop India cruising to a 9-wicket win. Australia hoping they can put on a better performance next match, Elise Perry's 300th international.
There's a lot that I've learnt in the time that I've been here that has been so impactful on just my general life.
Game 2 is tomorrow night. A Sixers win against the Stars tonight can go a long way towards securing a place in the Big Bash finals. Last night, even the Strikers' dancers got in on the action against the Scorchers.
It's into the stands and into the crowd and the band. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
The Strikers' dancers, they can catch.
Dropped first ball of Adelaide's innings. Matt Short made Perth pay his 76 not out, leading the Strikers to a 9-wicket thumping. The Scorchers losing their first game this season. Rafael Nadal has thrown fresh doubt over his Australian Open campaign with another injury scare. The 22-time Grand Slam champion heads to Melbourne unsure if he'll be able to compete just over a week out.
It's the sight that left even the man himself with his heart in his mouth. A hip injury 12 months ago almost ended Rafael Nadal's career. While this issue isn't anywhere near as serious, the 37-year-old Nadal is clearly concerned about breaking down again just days out from what will likely be his final Australian Open.
I hope to have the chance to be practicing next week and to play in Melbourne. But honestly, I am not 100% sure of anything now.
With a touch of Hollywood in Vegas, Nadal failed to convert 3 match points against Jordan Thompson. The Aussie battled on to win the second set tiebreak. Second set. A 3-hour and 25-minute grind. Thompson with one of the biggest wins of his career.
Again, second match, Thompson.
Completely forgot I saved match points. But to beat Rafa in Brizzy at home in a quarter-final, I think it's my first semi-final on a hard court as well, so couldn't be happier.
The big names already rolling into Melbourne Park. 2021 champion Naomi Osaka back on Rod Laver Arena for the first time since becoming a mum. Andrew McCormack, 7 News.
The sky's the limit for the Knights heading into the 2024 season. Taking a page from yesteryear, every team at the club trained together this morning after returning from the Christmas break. Last year's run to the semi-finals has put the pressure on their NRL squad, but they are not afraid to aim high.
And now you've got some belief and some evidence of what you can do on the field. You start to go, right, well, where can we end up? And you're not sort of talking about top 8 anymore. You want to go further.
The Knights start their season against the Raiders on March 7. Socceroos coach Graham Arnold is confident skipper Matty Ryan will be fit for next week's Asian Cup opener. Ryan will miss tonight's one-off warm-up match against Bahrain as he recovers from a broken cheekbone. Positions are still up for grabs in Arnie's team. Welsh-raised Gethin Jones will make his debut starting at right back.
It is a position that I'm just waiting for one of these players to take it, put their hand up and take the jersey and say it's mine.
Australia start their Asian Cup against India next Saturday. On track for a 4th straight loss in the A-League, Macarthur had the latest of let-offs against Newcastle, a 98th minute penalty, salvaging a 1-1 draw in Campbelltown.
Steps up and plays the ball into the back of the net, and Macarthur have pulled it out of the fire.
At Combank Stadium tonight, the Mariners led the Wanderers 1-0 at half-time. Ange Postecoglou's first taste of the FA Cup produced a blinder of a goal.
He's gone for goal and he scored!
Oh, wow, what a hit.
Well, it's going to take something exceptional to open this game up, and that was a fairly exceptional strike.
Pedro Porro's rocket gave Tottenham a 1-0 win over Burnley, Spurs through to the 4th round. 8 months after breaking his leg in a horror crash, Australian Daniel Sanders had a brilliant start to the Dakar Rally. Nicknamed the Colonel, Sanders was second fastest on the bikes in a tricky prologue stage.
The sand was really soft and a lot of camel grass, so it was really rough. Really hard on my femur, which wasn't good.
Two-time winner Toby Price was 8th fastest. Rob, it's been a cracker of a day at the SCG and all about David Warner, as you mentioned earlier. Great to see him with his family and, the new era begins against the West Indies for Australia.
And you look like you've been loving every second of the coverage.
It's been a great series as well. Pakistan have been great.
Good on you, Mo. You have to say that. Every week, Sydney's North Shore steps back in time. A Milkman has returned to our city, delivering farm-fresh dairy in glass bottles before dawn. He tells 7 News he's on a mission to reduce plastic consumption one suburb at a time.
For decades, the Milkman was the neighbourhood hero.
Fresh, creamy country milk straight from the cow.
The nostalgic sound of clinking bottles, often heard in the early hours, as the old glass was replaced with new. It was a familiar sight on Sydney's lower North Shore in the 40s and 50s. This is Sid Flynn, Mossman's Milko, and now servicing the same patch, a modern milkman, doing the rounds before the sun comes up. Meet Dominic Ryan, the owner of Restore, dropping dairy to your door the old-fashioned way.
The Milkman was a thread that was sort of connecting the community. The Milkman hasn't serviced these streets for about 40 years.
No horse and cart, but a van filled with the highest quality product from a farm on the state's south coast.
Customers tell us it tastes like milk used to taste like.
His run covers several suburbs in the North Sydney and Mossman area, with plans to expand, and for good reason.
The supermarkets are failing to give consumers legitimate plastic-free options. I think we're all becoming aware of the impact of plastic on our health and on our environment.
New South Wales generates 800,000 tonnes of plastic waste each year, and only 12% of it is recycled. Households are the largest contributor. Since September, Dominic has delivered over 700 of these, fresh cow's milk in glass bottles, direct from the farm. That's 700 fewer plastic bottles in landfill. And just as it was then,
it is essential that consumers promptly return empty bottles to maintain the efficiency of this service.
It remains now.
Our service of delivering, collecting, washing, sanitising, refilling is an entirely circular process with very little waste.
With the same great taste.
And good health to you all with milk.
Heather Richardson, 7 News.
Wonderful. Amber is back with the forecast now. Amber, how's it looking tomorrow?
Nice and settled again, Rob, but then that change arrives. Just how much rain is on the way? Your detailed 7-day outlook is next.
Tonight's 7 News headlines: a toddler has been killed after he was struck by a ute at a holiday park near Dubbo. 2 people have escaped just in time when their house burst into flames in Sydney's southwest. An Alaska Airlines flight has been forced to turn around after a window blew out mid-air. And David Warner has helped Australia to victory over Pakistan in his final Test cricket match. His family was watching on. Now here is Amber with Sydney's weather.
Thank you, Rob. We're expecting more settled conditions on the way for Sydney tomorrow, with most of the city enjoying clear skies this evening. Right now in the city it is 25 degrees, though it does feel closer to 21 in fresh east to northeasterly winds. If we take a look at the satellite image, we've got this trough lying over central Australia. It's forecast to deepen and move into the state's west tomorrow and Monday, bringing widespread wet and stormy conditions, particularly for inland areas. That storm warning is in place across the Riverina and the southwest slopes for tomorrow, with locally intense rainfall forecast west of the ranges. We are expecting to see lighter falls reach the coast early in the working week as that system tracks towards the coast. But nationwide tomorrow, a slight chance of an early shower in Brisbane. Otherwise, the city's expecting a partly cloudy top of 29 degrees, 28 and partly cloudy tomorrow in Canberra, late rain at times, with rain also increasing during the afternoon in both Melbourne and Hobart. Showers and a possible storm in Adelaide tomorrow. Perth's expecting a sunny top of 36, while storms are possible in Darwin tomorrow, tops of 34. Across New South Wales tomorrow, a widespread severe storm outbreak is likely across the state's west, bringing damaging winds and that localised intense rainfall. 6-hourly totals up to 100 millimetres is possible, while closer to the coast, under partly cloudy skies, 29 degrees is the forecast top tomorrow at Newcastle, on the way to 26 at Wollongong. Let's zoom in now on the Sydney Basin. It is set to warm up slightly tomorrow, reaching 32 degrees at Penrith, 30 degrees tomorrow at Camden and also at Campbelltown. 28 is the forecast top at Manly, with 25 degrees expected across the rest of the beaches. On the water tomorrow, winds will reach 25 knots during the early afternoon, reaching up to 30 knots during the evening, with strong wind warnings in place along the coast tomorrow. They stretch from the waters of Newcastle down to the waters of Eden. But back in the city tomorrow, it is looking like a mostly settled Sunday under partly cloudy skies. 28 degrees is the forecast top in the CBD, 19 degrees expected overnight. But make sure you make the most of it tomorrow, because Monday brings that wet grey change. Rain at times, most likely from late morning, between 5 to 10 millimetres forecast across the city, with the chance of a late storm. Those showers should ease by Wednesday, but that reprieve at this stage is only looking brief, with a chance we'll see those showers then return from Thursday and then persist throughout the week. Make the most of tomorrow, Rob.
Amber Laidler, thank you. Sound advice. That is 7 News this Saturday, January 6. We'll have updates throughout the evening, and sunrise is from 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. I'm Robert Ovadia on behalf of the whole 7 News team. Good night.
Stream 7 News anytime, live and on demand on 7 Plus. And with 7news.com.au, you'll know the news now.